Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Selden. I'm the president of the Montessori Foundation, and this is Finding the Perfect Match, Recruit and Retain Your Ideal Enrollment. The Montessori Foundation runs several of these webinars a week. We do this one every Tuesday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, 10 o'clock Pacific Coast Time. We also do one at the same time on Thursdays called Independent School Leaders Forum. Here we talk about anything having to do with making the phone ring, advertising, guerrilla marketing, software solutions, funnels, ad campaigns. Today we're going to be talking about doing a market study and developing a marketing plan. But basically on Tuesday, it's all about making the phone ring and figuring out who ought to be admitted into our school because not everyone that approaches us is necessarily a good fit. For example, if you are running a Christian Montessori school, you probably would be a little uncomfortable if somebody came in and said, I really think all religion is stupid, and I'm going to teach my kid to make fun of people who are Christians. I don't care if you're Jewish, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Buddhist, clearly that would not be a good fit. That doesn't mean they're bad people. It's not a good fit for you. And so the whole idea is how do we get the right people into our school? How do we not sell out? Because man, Michelle, you were saying, your marketing plan is a hope and a prayer. When you don't have a marketing plan going, you're kind of depending on word of mouth, which sometimes works and sometimes can work against you. And it certainly is not a great way to go from an initial group of 10 kids, 20 kids, 30 kids to more. And I will admit a bias. There's two kinds of schools that work really efficiently. The first is when you are the owner, operator, teacher, manager, chief cook, and bottle washer, and you're in an affordable space and you don't have anyone in the office. You're going to work like a dog, but you're probably going to make a decent living. On the other hand, don't slip on the ice because it's really tough. The other is schools generally begin to become financially stable at about 150 full-time paying children. Now, as my mother used to say back in the 1940s when I was a kid, I would rather charge $100,000 a year for, one kid than charge $1,000 a year for 100 kids. It's a lot easier to handle just one kid. So again, the whole issue is, how do you create a school that is financially viable, financially stable, doesn't make you feel exhausted at the end of the week, doesn't make you worried about will you be able to pay the bills? That's what this is all about. How do we create strong, sustainable, happy Montessori schools where everyone feels like it's working the way it's supposed to? So building community is just as important as anything else. There's also an old saying in the world of advertising. Without advertising, a terrible thing happens. Nothing. The phone doesn't ring. You don't get paid. I don't care if you're profit or nonprofit. If you don't keep those nonprofits coming in, bad things happen. So the whole idea is we have to work to make it happen. The average business in this world spends between 5 and 30% of its income, gross income, on marketing. The typical private school, well, let me say it another way. The typical Montessori school, because many private schools that are not Montessori have learned this lesson the hard way. But the typical Montessori school spends less than 1% of its gross income a year on marketing. They spend $5,000, $10,000 a year. They think that they are really overspending. I ran a school with a budget of about $2 million. I also ran a school with about $10 million of income, but $2 million a year. That's a school of about 150, 180 kids. And we were spending just under $100,000 a year on advertising. Now, that includes, the advertising agency, the actual ad spend, brochure printing, print ads. I mean, everything that had to do with making the marketing program work. So again, today is all about doing a marketing plan. and doing a marketing study. Now, a study is how you analyze what the market is like today. And most people think they know their market, but it's more anecdotal. It's sort of impressions as opposed to hard facts. I also want to tell you that you can lie with statistics. So you got to really know your market. You got to figure out, are you in a micro uh, ecological niche? For example, if you only have room in your school for 100 children and you typically lose, let's say, 10 kids a year, well, heck, all you need is 10 kids a year. On the other hand, if you're struggling to get those 10 kids, you got a problem. So the idea is, how do we get it to the point where, let's say, Soren, you need 20 kids a year. I'm just making that up. Ideally, you'd have 200 kids a year trying to get into your school. And a lot of us in Montessori, at least, tend to be uncomfortable with that idea because we don't want to be elite. We're not trying to be snotty. On the other hand, it's really great to be the most popular person at the dance. So the ideal is you want people to know you exist. You do not want to be the best kept secret in your town. That is a lousy thing to be in. You do not want word of mouth only working for you, although word of mouth is much more believable. Let's face it, there is no way to impress a parent more, and it's assuming they're the right parent for your school, than if a other parent says, Michelle, this is the best school I've ever been to. You're going to love it here. Even better is if my kid, who's 5 years old, says, Miss Michelle, you're going to love this school because my friends and I think it's the best place we've ever been to. We love this school. If you want someone to really convince a parent that the school is bad, you yourself say something bad about it. And the next best is if one of your teachers says something bad about it. That's absolutely believable. Even if they're lying through their teeth, the average parent will run the other way. So again, the idea is word of mouth is great. Anything works. Skywriting messages work. Electronic billboards work. New York Times full page ads work. TV ads work. NPR work. Lots of things work. You got to decide, what are you going to do with the limited dollars you have available? And ideally, who are the people you want to reach and how do you get their attention? So I'm going to start sharing. Hey, Marlene Cherry. Um, One of the things that we know is that the average person is being inundated with marketing messages to the point where they actually have grown a thick skin. They're marketing messaging resistant. They hear it from every school around. Send your kid to Sidwell Friends, right? Send your kid to National Cathedral. Send your kid to Manor Montessori. Send your kid to, you know, you name it, Montessori school. It's just endless. It used to be that we were taught, if you took a degree in communications and marketing, you were taught that the average person needed to hear an advertisement 8 times before they even know you were talking to them. According to HubSpot, you and I are probably hearing between 5 and 8,000 marketing messages a day between the internet, email, Facebook, TV, radio, signs we see as we drive to work. Wherever it comes from, you are being delivered many more marketing messages for everything from Viagra to wrinkle cream to car luxury, whatever. And yet it takes much more to get people's attention today than it used to. Email almost doesn't work at all. So many people get more than 100 emails a day, they just don't even bother to see it. Text works better at the moment for most people than email does. And even that is becoming annoying. I don't know about you, but I got political parties trying to get me to donate. I've got, job offers that are coming in from from auto text. I mean, everyone is using robo dialing and robo um, ads on email and text and whatever. And so it's getting harder and harder and harder. So the first trick is to figure out one, who are you trying to reach? And two, how do you get their attention? And three, since you don't have endless money, how do you use your money in the most efficient way? Nessa, you work, I believe, for the Christian Montessori school in, the Los Angeles area generally. Clearly, you need to reach people who, first off, have kids, right? They got to have kids. They got to have kids of the right age. Ideally, they can afford you because if they can't afford you, we're just going to aggravate each other, just going to annoy you. If they think you're a publicly funded school and you're not, you may be able to do financial aid. On the other hand, you're probably not looking to have every single child get a free ride or a major discounted tuition. So figuring out who you're trying to reach and what they would resonate with. And if you're a Christian school, the name Christian probably tells a big part of the story. It probably isn't going to be the first thing to bring a Muslim family to you. On the other hand, maybe it would. A lot of Islamic families don't want to go to a secular school. They may say, okay, a Catholic school might be a good choice. I would rather find an Islamic Montessori school. On the other hand, I see Islamic families choosing Catholic schools and Christian schools all over the country. In the same way, Jewish day schools, children who are Jewish may choose to go to a Catholic school because they don't have a Jewish day school in the area. They don't like what's going on in the traditional schools. They want something different. And so they may choose. I myself, as a Jewish kid, went to Georgetown University, a Jesuit university, because it was the best college in town for me. There's no wrong answer. The trick is to figure out who would love you for what you are. So today we're talking about how do you do a marketing study, which is all about who lives around you that you're reasonably going to market to. Because, if you are in Vancouver, Washington, you probably don't want to market to Los Angeles. It would be kind of silly. It's a long drive. So you got to figure out who lives there and how do I get a hold of them? What's it going to take in the most cost efficient way that gets through their defense barriers? So let me share and let me start showing. And this is a lot of technical information today, and I hope you find it useful. And by the way, if you ever do work with Clint, one of the things that we do at the foundation for Clint is we do market studies for every single school that works with the either Montessori Growth Suite or for the Montessori Enrollment Accelerator program. So today's topic is building a strategic market study and enrollment marketing plan for independent schools. And I run the Montessori Foundation. Clearly, I know how to spell Montessori. I also understand all kinds of other schools and have consulted with Jewish day schools, Islamic schools, yeshivas, public schools, magnet schools, you name it. So we understand more than Montessori, but Montessori is where my heart lives. Now, a market study and a marketing plan are often done in the same document, but they are two separate things. The first is a study of what's going on, and the plan is what do we do in light of what's going on. So a traditional market study is going to face challenges because quite often they really don't go very deep. They look at some basic stuff like how many families are here, how many children are school age. They may be able to give you some understanding of how many families could afford you based on their household income. But a lot of them just don't go deeply enough. And it doesn't matter if you're selling the right product. But if you're selling a private school, You need to be pinpoint accurate because you're typically not dealing with a big marketing budget. If you don't have millions of dollars to spend and you're operating with a budget that's, let's say, under $100,000, you've got to be careful about spending your money where it's most likely to work. So when you do a market study, you're trying to figure out some key questions. You're looking at the choices that people make. Why do they choose one school over another? You're trying to understand the thought process that's going on. The second is, why do they reject one school over another? What turns them off? You're also trying to figure out what are the alternatives that people are considering, not because you need to mimic what those schools are doing. In fact, it would probably be a mistake to say, wow, this school has just introduced llamas at their school and we need llamas, or they have a football team. By the way, I did an ad campaign at Newgate School in Sarasota, Florida, that got a 17.5% return on investment. In other words, for every dollar we were getting 17.5% of everyone that was reached actually took action. That's incredibly high. If you get 1% return on an ad, you are doing well. But the way we did it is we said proudly, we've had no football at Newgate School for the last 40 some years. And that got lots of people's attention. So, in other words, you don't want to necessarily go out and do what the other guys are doing. You want to do what's right for you. So, there's a 10-section framework that we recommend that you look at when you're doing a marketing study. And this is just a simple thing. If your marketing plan has 8 or 9 or 5, what's the difference? It's just my way of thinking of it. The first, and this is the document that we call an summary, a marketing plan. So the first is there's going to be a summary that is usually going to boil down everything that's been found into an easy to read statement. And it's going to identify the things you would expect. It's going to say, this is where you are in the market. This is what you need to accomplish. You've got, 200 kid capacity. You only have 85 kids enrolled. It's March. You got a lot of spaces to fill. You're behind the 8 ball. This is the time to mortgage your home to try to get as many families into that school as you can. And by the way, I'm not kidding. If you don't spend money on marketing, you may pay the price with a failed school. And I cannot emphasize that enough. Quite often, if your school is private or if your families are close to you, they may not understand why you would ever need to market. They may say it's a waste of our money. It should be going to the teachers or feeding the guinea pigs. But if you don't market, you're just asking to not have a full school. And if your current school is bringing in, let's say, $10,000 a year a child, every single space that sits empty is $10,000 that could have been there to help you pay the bills that instead is just doing nothing. It's just sitting there. And if your tuition is $25,000 a year or $40,000 a year, I'm sitting in a school right now in Oakland that's $45,000 a year of tuition. Every single space counts. So you want to be full. By the way, your teachers generally do not want you to be full. They like it when they have plenty of room in their classroom. And if you start the school year and you've got 5 spaces empty, they want you to wait until January or next year before you let a child in. Now, I don't blame them. I understand where they're coming from, but you need to fill those spaces. By the way, you do not need to fill them with a warm body. The test is not, is their money green? The test is, are these people who will make you miserable, or are these people that will make you and your teachers happy? So clearly, you need to look and ask yourself, can this family really afford us? Or are we just setting ourselves up for heartache and aggravation? But the bottom line is you do need to fill. If you're up against the wall, you're going to take in families that you normally wouldn't take. But the idea is just how far are you willing to bend to be able to continue to pay the bills? So the first part is an executive summary. Now, while I'm at it, does anyone have anything you want to ask or say? Hearing nothing, I'll just keep going. So in the marketing study, you're going to be looking clearly at some key concepts. One of them is your purpose. What is your enrollment goal? Is it to recruit 50 kids? Is it to keep your enrollment no less than 95% filled? Is it to fill a specific age niche, like we keep losing kids at the kindergarten age level or at the sixth grade level, and we're trying to make sure that we have enough kids to keep our middle school viable? Uh, is it that in your school you have an infant program or a toddler program and you can fill that 5 times over, but you're having a hard time recruiting 3, 4, and 5 year olds? So you got to start with, what do you notice right from the get-go that are issues that you need to zero in on? So, what's your purpose or your goals, and what are your priorities? What are the critical initiatives and critical targets that align with your school's mission and drive effective enrollment strategies? For example, I'm working with a school right now in North Carolina that is building a building that will add on 150 students to a school that currently has 105 students. Rather than wait until December or January to start recruiting, we are putting that campaign together now. It will launch on July 1st. It will carry on throughout the fall and the spring, the winter and the spring, because the goal is to hit the fall of 2027 with as many of those brand new spaces full. So you've got to know, what is it you're focusing on. You have to clarify your identity. Now, you may say, a marketing study, what is clarifying my identity got to do? Is it a marketing study all about, what zip codes do we serve, and, how convenient are we along people's drive to work, and, what ages do, basic stuff, demographics. How many people have children of this age? What's our competition? Yes, all of those things are important. But if you don't know what your identity is, both who you think you are and who your customers think you are, you're not going to get far with marketing. Marlene, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. And if you're still there, I can't see if you are, I'm going to ask you to talk to me a little bit about the Montessori School of Chevy Chase and your current identity. Are you willing to do that, my friend?
How do I? Oh, okay. I did it. I
You
unmuted.
did it. So the reason I picked on you is I happen to know you're a relatively small school.
Mhm.
You're in an affluent area of a pretty big city. You got a lot of competition. Um, when you think about your school after all these years, how do you think of yourself? What are you doing? What are you selling?
Um, a, I don't know, a good, I mean, a happy, well, productive school that creates children that are happy. I don't know.
So notice, what you think you're selling is a school that makes kids happy.
Right. And I guess parents too, and they see growth in their children.
So if a family approaches you, why do you think they start the journey of talking to you, looking at you, visiting you? What do you think leads them to think that maybe you might be a fit?
From what I hear them say, they like the fact that we're a small school, that we have English and French immersion, and that we're very home-like, we're friendly, you know, we talk, with them whenever they need help.
Mhm.
They like that atmosphere.
So it sounds to me like I heard you're cozy.
Yeah.
Your school feels kind of sweet, home-like. You said that you talk with them when they need help, which suggests to me that you're trying to be family friendly. You're trying to be a
Family
partner with
friendly,
your
right.
parents.
Mhm.
Okay. What would distinguish you from, say, Beauvoir?
Well, I don't really know it, but I guess they're very straightforward and they don't get involved with families, they do the, job. It's a business. That's what I think, more of a business than the way I do it.
Marlene, why would they choose you as opposed to, let's say, Andrew Cutt's Oneness Family School in Bethesda?
That's a good question. I don't know because I keep asking myself that.
Uh-huh. Or Aiden Montessori School? So
No,
these, these
they do better at organizing, and they do better at showing this, marketing this school.
well, what you're describing is you have a sense that you could do more, and one of your competitors is doing more. On the other hand, in addition to doing more, in the mind, the part of this that I'm looking at is how does the market think of your school versus another school? For example, Nessa, you work in a Christian Montessori school. Reasonable to assume that your families that are approaching you the first time they know you're Christian. So right away, that differentiates you from a non-Christian Montessori school. And in addition to all the other things that you may be doing, you may be very family friendly, very home-like. You may be doing organic food. I don't know. You could be doing all kinds. It's reasonable to assume that a family that would choose you is looking for a faith-based school of a Christian denomination. On the other hand, if it's a Catholic family and there's a choice of a Catholic Montessori school, they might choose a Catholic Montessori school as opposed to a Christian Montessori school, right? Because
Right,
they're shades of Christian.
right. Most of the family, well, I'd say that all the families, they are happy that we're not a religious school.
Mhm. So one of the things in your case, the positive they're looking for is they're not looking for a faith-based education.
Mhm.
Every one of us has our own unique characteristics. And what I'm getting at is before you start a marketing study, the person doing it for you is going to usually a lot of what happens is the marketing firm starts talking to you. Tell me about your school. Tell me about your school. Tell me about your school. If you're doing it for yourself because you don't feel you can afford the $5,000 to do a market study, what you want to be asking yourself is who are we? Who loves us? Who doesn't love us? Who would absolutely run the other way? Why would they choose us versus Oneness Family? Well, Oneness Family is probably more expensive. It goes up through high school. It's a somewhat larger school. It's located in Bethesda, not Chevy Chase, which means another 10 to 20-minute drive in traffic. So all of these things are part of it. So people choose schools for lots of reasons. My sister goes there. She lives close to me. We can carpool. I want the girls to go to school together. I know Marlene. I went to high school with her. I trust her with my kid. And there are all kinds of reasons why people choose schools. The secret is to figure out, other than these one-off weird things, like I went to high school with this mom, you're trying to figure out what's the patterns. What are we working with here? Because it is part of what allows you to craft your marketing plan. So first you have to do your study. And the study includes how many children are there who have a family income of X or above and who would choose to pay this kind of money. For example, I'm currently in Oakland, California. This school I'm working with has two campuses. They have one in an area called Rock Ridge. That campus is always full. It's very close to Berkeley, very posh neighborhood. Homes here, average home is 1.2 million. About 10 miles away from here, they have a second campus. Probably not even 10, probably 5 miles. But they have these mountains. And so it means getting on a highway and driving through a tunnel and so forth. And there, the average house is about $800,000 a year. The number of children around Rock Ridge is unbelievable. This school is always full. Now, that doesn't mean they don't face challenges because in California, there is now free transitional kindergarten for 4-year-olds. And in a lot of the schools, because they have empty classes, they're now taking free 3-year-olds, which is seriously threatening private schools in California. Now, I wonder, Nessa, are you seeing any of that down in your area?
They are taking like pre-K. They have a lot of subsidy um, plans that parents can, you know, fill out applications and choose, and they don't have to pay anything.
And that sounds like families that have an income-based need. However, in California, as there's no income, anyone could do it. You could be a multi-billionaire. Anyone can have free programs for 4-year-olds regardless of income. You just have to show up and just like registering your kindergartner.
Mm.
And so the point I'm getting at is you've got to know the market. The other thing to keep in mind is we always were competing with other private schools, religious and non-religious, and public schools once we hit kindergarten, right? We always did.
Mhm.
In fact, in the Montessori world, we always talk about the pyramidal enrollment pattern, where you have a lot of 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and it bleeds off terribly at 5-year-olds if you've got any at all. And my argument has always been we need to have a cylinder. I want the same number of kids in my school because of demand, not only demand to get in the first time, but to stay in. I want a cylinder going all the way up through high school. Now, you don't have to go through high school. For example, the school I'm working with here stops at the end of kindergarten. They currently, out of 200 kids, might have 10 children who are kindergartners. Everyone else is going to other schools, private schools, very expensive private schools, and so forth. Now, what I'm getting at is this. Even during the Great Depression, even during the dot-com bust, even during the 2008 recession, private schools tended to hold their own at between 10 and 18% of the American population. I want you to think about that. Many people, when they think private schools, think great wealth. The reality is, while there have always been country club schools that cost 50, 60, 70, $80,000 a year, and the families are a who's who. The country club schools, we all know them. Every town's got some of them. The average person going to a private school is not particularly affluent. Nessa, what do you say? I know Orange County can be pretty pricey. California is pretty pricey. But would you agree with what I'm saying that the families going to your Montessori school, the Christian Montessori school in Orange County, not terribly wealthy like Beverly Hills. I'm right. So when you look at the demographics across the country, what you find is people choose private schools not just because they have more money than brains. They choose it because there's something that they find in those schools that they want. Now, I just saw a question come up across the board, and I think if I saw it correctly, it's how do you keep families, right? And I'm not sure who that was and whether that's the person who was staying very quiet. Michelle,
Can
who
you hear
was
me?
that?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, yes. So, hi, I'm Nancy. So, you were saying how to keep families all the way through high school. So, we are currently newborns to third grade, and our goal is to get to eighth grade. I don't think we'll brave high school, but
Mhm.
it seems that as soon as they get to the lower elementary program, families disperse to public school for the same reason that they don't have to pay. So, how do
Yeah.
you create that culture?
That's a very good question. It's a it's part of what we're talking about today because if, for example, one of the issues you're facing is we're getting the enrollment that we need when we have an opening, but we're always having to fill in openings because they leave us. And so what we're trying to do is find families that will stay, and we're also trying to do things that will help them to decide to stay, right? So it's two parts. The part we usually focus on is after we're married, how will we keep them? But there's an old saying, marry in haste and repent at leisure. Now think about what I just said. Many times we're glad that someone went to the dance with us. They chose to enroll in our school. But we didn't ask ourselves, are these people who actually want us for something other than a great early childhood education? So, for example, Maisie, by the way, Maisie, where are you located?
At Dallas, Texas.
Okay, that's a great town. I know a lot about Dallas, Texas. I've worked with many, many of your schools in Dallas. In Dallas, you have a fair number of families who do not like the public schools, not at all. They don't want them. So the first rule is if you sense that a family wants public school, don't think that they're going to fall in love with you after you let them in. If a family comes to you and they've got three kids, the first rule is they probably can't afford you unless you're really dirt cheap. The more kids they have in the family, the harder it is to stay. Um, And Nandita, I'll be right with you. I see your question about Canada. And so the bottom line, you look at a family, it doesn't mean you don't let a family in because, number one, if you're starving, my God, you're gonna let them in. If you need to pay the bills and there's nothing else. On the other hand, you can say to yourself, this is not my ideal family. I love them as people. They're great, but they're going to break my heart. They're going to break my teacher's heart every time one of these families leaves us to go, let's say at third grade to public school, and if you're lucky if you're only losing them at third grade, usually we'll lose them at kindergarten, right? Or first grade, with you, whatever. So, Marlene, are you still losing kids at kindergarten?
Yes.
Okay. So, this is a great example. If you meet a family in Chevy Chase, Maryland, and they've got three kids, there's a good chance that unless they're very, very successful, they can't afford you. So they're going to feed kids in and out, and get them into local schools as fast as they can. Now, if that's all you've got, if that's the only people applying, you're going to take them in. But you're always going to be replacing kids, and your classes are never going to normalize, or they're never going to normalize as well as they could have.
Right. Mhm.
So if you have a choice, you want to zero in on trying to reach families who do not want anything to do with the DC public schools or the Dallas public or any public school. for whatever reason. There are all kinds of reasons why people feel that way. On the other hand, the average American, 9 out of 10, think the American public schools are part of being an American. They're absolutely zeroed in. Of course, I'm going to send my kids to the public schools. Now, if you yourself feel that that's true, and if that's the game you want to play, then that's you don't have a problem. Another, the point I'm getting at is as a school leader, you get to choose what are you trying to accomplish. And Maisie, you said ideally we'd like to go up through eighth grade. And I assure you, you can. That is absolutely doable. And it's much more doable in Texas than most places in the world. Because one, you've got state funding for school age children. Two, you have a very conservative population in Dallas in general. They like independence. Three, they're generally well educated and they can be educational snobs. They want a high quality education. They're very, very motivated to try to help their children succeed. Fourthly, you got a lot of Montessori in Dallas. Montessori is not weird or controversial. That doesn't mean you don't have competition from Westwood Montessori and St. Alkwyn's Montessori and who knows. I mean, you got a lot of Montessori schools. On the other hand, Montessori is not controversial. What you got to do, Maisie, is you got to remember you're not selling Montessori, you're selling your unique school. So what you got to figure out is who's going to love us for who we are. That's the secret of developing a marketing plan. And part of what we do in doing a marketing plan is we do a periodic market study. Now, generally, I would say once every 5 years, once every 3 years, whatever. Sorry, I know Nandita had something that came up first. Nandita, do you want to go first? Because I don't want to ignore you. I love Canada.
Sorry, yes, I'll just a minute.
We hear you fine.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my video to start, and for some reason it's not. I'm sorry, I apologize.
That's okay.
So yes, I'm in the GTA or the Greater Toronto area,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a Montessori school. We are known for our authenticity in the Montessori program. Parents love us because we bring authentic Montessori to their children. However, a few years ago, the government started this whole subsidized care for daycares and early childhood education across Ontario, across Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the option to join in or not. I didn't join in, along with a lot of my colleagues who we realized that if we were to join in to that subsidy program, then our autonomy was going to be taken away. And I pride myself in really trying to provide the best to the children. So that would have meant a lot of budget cuts and things which I was not comfortable with. But long story short, now 2 years into, or 2 or 3 years into this subsidy thing, we're losing children to those subsidy spots in other, mostly daycares. Not many Montessori schools have gone in for that, but I guess it's money over quality. I mean, I don't know what to say. So how do I navigate this? How can I sort of overcome this? Because we are a very small school. We're licensed only for 58 children.
Yep.
We have infants, toddlers, and CASA children.
And did you ever, are you financially self-sustaining? In other words, did it ever hold its head above water? Does it feed you and your family?
Yes, yes. So we haven't
Okay.
had a problem with that. But now it's like obviously every number counts,
Yeah.
you know.
So,
So
Nandita, the answer to your question is number one, I know a lot about the Toronto market.
yes,
And I am, you may have, I was just speaking to the Canadian Montessori Canada last week.
right.
The bottom line is what I think number one you need to do is stand it. You need to stop dating all the wrong people.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want anything to do with families that are looking for daycare. That
Yep,
doesn't mean they're great people. It's just you're wasting your time with them. They're going to break your heart.
yep,
And what you got to figure out is how do I market in such a way that the people who pay attention to me are people who can afford me and do not want to be part of that kind of market share. In other words, they don't want that.
Right. Right.
In the same way, Marlene, in your case, your ideal family is a weird niche. They don't want to go to Sidwell Friends and they don't want to go to Chevy Chase Elementary. And it's tough because Chevy Chase Elementary, the public school, is so popular. And I know there's probably are not, I used to live in your old neighborhood years ago. I don't know what the names of the schools are any longer, but I know how popular the schools can be in that area and how loyal parents can be. You need the parents who are a very small subgroup who want not to go to the public schools, but they also are not looking for the other faith-based schools. In other words, you're looking for the perfect match. That's one of my books, is how to find the perfect match. And that ties in with the whole idea of how do you do a market study? Because what you're trying to do is figure out who would be the perfect match and how do I find these people? How do I market right to them? In some ways, the more
Right.
niche you are, Nessa, the Montessori Christian School, Southern California, what I probably don't remember the name correctly. Just the fact I know there's lots of Christian schools in that area. I know that. You've got a very narrow niche though. You already know we're selling to families of faith. We've got to drive home that we exist, what makes us unique, why you need to choose us over anything else. And we don't do that by bad mouthing some other school. We do that by spotlighting who we are. Nandita, going back to you, I know you only have under 60 children, but it sounds to me like you're a small family run boutique.
Correct.
And boutiques depend on either incredible, loyal clientele, and I'm sure you
Yes.
have loyal clientele, but
Yes.
obviously not enough.
Are you
And
listening?
so I think you need to invest in serious marketing.
That's the whole thing. That's what. So all these years we've been in operation now. We are in our 14th year, and we've really been, dependent on word of mouth. We've not done much marketing, but I think you're right. Now the time is because of all the other options available to the parents. We need to do some strategic marketing.
Well, I'm going to suggest, I'm sorry that Clint's not here today, but if you reach out to me do you know, you must be getting my emails because you're
Yes,
here.
yes, of course.
So reach out to me by email and I'll connect you with Clint. And I
Okay.
would there is a number of people that are doing marketing. I will say that of all the people I know, Clint is as good as anyone I've ever seen and probably better because he not only is running an agency, he used to be the marketing director for the best private school consulting group anywhere in the world, Independent School Management out of Wilmington, Delaware. Clint I think his strength is he's brilliant and he cares. His weakness is he is a one-man shop, and we have to try to help him as friends to make sure that he's able to keep up with everyone. But he can help you solve your problem. And
Okay.
it's not cheap. I mean, it's an investment. In general, people are always saying to me, well, what do I need to spend? And I would say somewhere's between a low of 17, 18,000 US a year and a high of, well, there is no upper limit, but probably 25,000. But on the other hand, if you keep two kids that you wouldn't have gotten and begin to reverse the attrition rate. So remember,
Right.
it's not just getting them in, it's keeping them. It's
Yeah.
keeping the secret. So that is something I think you would find that he can help you with, as can the foundation. I mean, we do a lot of work together with Clint. So reach out to me if you're interested, and we'll be happy to help you through it. Okay.
Perfect. I'll do that. Thank you.
Now, Soren, if you're still there, I see that your challenge is you're losing Ks, which is so common. I mean, almost every school. And you're a Montessori school too, as I recall, right?
Yeah, we're a small Montessori program, two schools in the ballpark of 90, 100 families.
And remind me where you're located.
Charlottesville, Virginia.
You're in Charlottesville.
Yeah.
We're talking about Charlottesville, University of VA.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
UVA.
Know your market. Okay. Well, again, you've got great public schools. You've got another Montessori school that's, I think, more established, if I remember correctly.
Quite large, at least. We're the oldest Montessori school in Charlottesville, but they are the largest.
Yeah. Well, generally, parents don't care so much about age as, you know, the shiny nickel. Um, I would say that I don't care whether you're big or small. This Michelle, the same thing is going for you. It's all about vetting your families while you're dating. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting to either of you or any of you that you start turning people away, that you start saying, oh, you don't want to come to kindergarten. You're not willing to promise me you're going to stay to kindergarten, so I'm not going to let you in at all. That doesn't work. You would simply starve to death. But I
We
think,
do ask the question on our application, but it's pretty rare that we would prioritize it. And honestly, who's going to put on their application that they don't plan to come to kindergarten?
oh,
If you're applying, you're going to say you're going to do it. So
yeah. Sorry, do you go up into elementary?
we don't. We finish at kindergarten.
Okay. So, as an aside, one of the groups that someone you probably ought to meet is the head of the school where I'm at right now. Her name is Sandy Zornish. She's the head of the Rockridge Montessori School in Oakland, California. They have, as I said, out of 200 kids, they might have 10 kindergartners. The reason why I'm here is it's a family-run school of 50 some years, and they saw this trouble coming in California, and they asked me to help them solve the problem before it becomes a disaster. Now, we have been able to keep almost every single 4-year-old. It used to be they had almost no 4-year-olds. So we're now up to 75% retention of 4-year-olds, and they can go to public school for free in California. Now we're turning our attention to the 5-year-olds. So in quick answer to the question, here's what we're doing. And it's not quick, it's not easy. Number one, you've got to sell Montessori as a package. Marlene, you're, as I remember, AMI trained,
Yes.
and in Washington, D.C., when we started, every Montessori school other than Barry stopped at kindergarten. Pretty much. I mean, Barry was one of the first elementary schools back in the 1950s, and really earlier than that, come to think of it. What I would recommend to all of you who are bleeding off kindergartners is when you talk to parents, and everywhere in print, in your ads, in your brochures, on your website, make it clear, who are we? We are selling a program package. This is not a 1-year deal, no one night stands. This is a complete package. It lasts through kindergarten. It's an investment. You've got to be willing to make an investment. I know you're going to do what's right for your family. You don't even know if you're going to be in Charlottesville in 2 years. So we're not lying to people. We're not telling, we're not asking them to make a promise they don't know they can keep. Instead, what we're saying to them, what I would recommend is you say to them, look, Montessori is great if you're here for 1 year, for 2 years, whatever. But if you want to reap the benefit of this program, you need to know before you apply that this is the way it works. If you come for 1 year or 2 years and you leave, we won't be able to tell 3 years later that your kid was ever in Montessori because it's the third year when it all comes together. And we can explain to you what's happening with executive function and brain development and why the third year is when it all comes together. So it's not that we won't take you if you won't swear you're going to be here for kindergarten. But I want you to know that if your kid comes here for kindergarten, even if our school goes through high school, the research shows that we can tell the kids that started in Montessori and went through 3 years. That's permanent. But if you bleed out, you're wasting your money. And it's not that it's a terrible thing and we're going to hate you forever. It's that you will have really not taken advantage of this. And it's hard. And when you say to a family, the investment that I'm talking about is hard, most families aren't willing to do it. You've got to decide up front if you're willing to do it. And I'm not going to ask you to make a promise that I can't hold you to and you don't know that you're going to keep. I'm just telling you right up front where I'm coming from. We're at our school looking for families that are going to be with us through kindergarten graduation. You do that, you're never going to regret it. You leave before then, you still probably won't regret it. You just won't know what you've lost. But we are selling a 3-year package. Now, we're also looking at all kinds of other things. For example, you can literally market right from the beginning. We're looking for a few families who understand the value of the full Montessori journey from age 3 through the end of age 5, the full preschool kindergarten package. It is a package. We know that not everyone wants that, and that's okay. We're looking for the families who want it. Just by saying it up front, you'll tend to cause people to reevaluate and decide, is this what I want? Now, you also need to, of course, show them what's in it for them, because if they don't really understand it, then this is just empty words. If you do a Google search for an essay called The Referral, written by John Long, the former headmaster of the Post Oak Montessori School in the Houston area, it's a great article if you've never read it. In it, he describes a day when he gave a tour to a mom with a rising 5-year-old from a non-Montessori preschool. And the mom, is going through Post Oak. She's looking at what these kids are doing, and she's blown away. And she's seeing kids doing division, they're doing stamp game, they're doing, the bead frame, they're writing, they're doing grammar work, they know parts of speech. And she's saying, I need to know, my kid can't do this. Will your teachers push my daughter to do this? And John says, well, no, they're not going to push her. They'll certainly encourage her. But the reality is they're not going to push her. That's not the way this works. Every child is on their own journey. We're going to try to help her do as much as she possibly can. And by the way, I can already see I'm going to do part 2 of this next week. That's how I guess I'm celebrating my birthday, my 80th birthday on Tuesday, because I haven't gotten to the whole how do we finish this market study. The bottom line is if you play this right, what you'll notice from my experience, and I saw this at Barry, I saw this, Marlene probably remembers when we moved from Barry, from the city of Washington, D.C. to Montgomery County, Maryland, where nobody went to private school. We were able to slowly first convince people to stay through kindergarten, and then we began to build them up to, thanks, Nandita. And please, I hope you're able to join us next week. And if not, if you're signed up, I'll send you the recording. Thank you. So the bottom line is, if you do this, again, you're not gonna get 100% success, but step by step, you begin to create the culture. So for example, if you sat down with me 35 years ago at the Barry School, and Margot, if you'd come walking in with your 4-year-old child, I would say to you, we're looking for families who are going to be with us in 15 years when their kids are graduating high school. We know you're going to do whatever's best for your kid. We know your kid may want to do something different. She may want to play baseball for, Walter Johnson. But we're looking for families that are going to be with us. And I want you to see what the whole package is. If that's not what you want to see, it's okay. You can leave anytime. But we're looking for families that are going to be with us for the whole journey. We're not going to break your arm if you don't stay. We're not going to make you feel guilty. This is your kid. You're the captain. You're doing the best you know for your kid. But we're looking for families that understand we're selling a complete journey. Just those words. And I'm thinking back to the 1960s when AMI came to America and was in Washington, D.C. Every single AMI school of those days, and we had about 50, 60 of them, said to every single family, this is a 3-year package. You're going to leave anytime you want. We can't stop you, but we want you to know right from the beginning, this is what we're selling. And if you want to come to this fancy restaurant and not stay for coffee and dessert, that's your decision. It's a bad metaphor because it's much worse than not having dessert. But the idea that this is what it's all about. Bottom line is if you are missing more than 2 kids a year, I don't care if you got 500 kids or 15 kids or 50 kids. If you have the capacity to recruit and accept 2 more kids a year, you need to find the best private school marketing agency that you can and mortgage your home if necessary. I'm quite literally serious about this. And invest in marketing. Now, I happen to like what we do, but I can also tell you all the other school consulting groups that do it. It's worth it. It's even worth it for you, Michelle. Now, you're gonna want to work cheap, and if you can do guerrilla marketing, I'm all in favor of it. By
Well,
the way, great books on guerrilla marketing.
we have a max of 25 kids right now, and I'll tell you right now, I have seven staying for kindergarten next year.
I'd
So,
say that you've got 25 kids in the school,
hmm
and of them, 7 are staying for kindergarten.
yep.
You're doing something right.
Thank you.
And
Well, I'm
again,
trying,
what,
but
what we're always trying to do is one, make sure that we don't have any wasted space because every child deserves a Montessori education. Our teachers deserve not to have their heart broken when they get the Dear Marlene letter saying, Marlene, I'm so happy what you did for Michelle. And she's going to Sidwell next year. And it's all because of you. And you're trying to figure out, am I supposed to cry or be happy? So
we have a
what
few
we're
of those
trying
we're
to
losing, but it's hard.
the bottom line is one, we're going to have our hearts broken at times because we love every one of these families. On the other hand, chance favors the prepared mind. The more consciously we plan for this, that we message it, the harder we work, the more seriously we work on this instead of allowing it to happen by chance, the more likely we are to grow like mom did from 13 kids on Allison Street in Northwest Washington to the Barry School. We're more like, in fact, every private school starts like you, Michelle. Every one of us.
Well, we've
Um,
been here for 28 years now, and I think part of the thing is we give out tuition assistance to
mhm.
families. So we have a lot of families who hope to come here for free, who look at us. And so, I mean, we do have, I think, we had 12 families apply for tuition assistance this year.
Mhm.
And so a big part of my job is fundraising all year to try and raise enough money to pay for all of those kids who need tuition assistance in order to attend here.
Here's what my mother did when she had 13 kids. She charged the paying customers twice as much as she normally would have charged. And she gave away a third of all income to needs-based families. She called it the Robin Hood syndrome. There's no wrong answer. As long as what you're doing is working and you're happy, there's no wrong way to run a school. But I think that the secret and the reason why we do market studies is to ask ourselves, have we tried to plant our garden in an area where the soil is all clay? And if so, what will grow here? And are we being ridiculous, or is there something we can do to change the composition of the soil. So, for example, for mom in Washington, D.C., she wanted to create a school for all nations. That was her goal. She didn't necessarily want to only serve the poor. Serving the poor is fine. You just got to have a strategy. So, for example, Lumen Montessori in Dallas is a school for inner city, mostly Hispanic and people of color. It is a brilliant program. It is not taking a vow of poverty. Very, very, very successful school. But the secret is you got to figure out how are we going to pay for it? Where is Mama Warbucks coming from? And are we in the wrong town? And to use the farmer metaphor, sometimes we need to decide whether running a small commercial farm in a backwood part of Kentucky may be a lot harder than if we move to an area where the soil is rich. It's not that the people in the small town in Kentucky don't deserve it too. You just got to figure out what's your mission in life. And by the way, you can be there for 28 years and choose to spend the next 50 years there. Or you can decide that there's another model that you want to create. And so part of what we try to do is encourage school leaders like us to say, what's holding us back? What would we do if money wasn't a problem? What's our dream? Have we done in our lifetime? Margot, you and I, and Marlene, we put a lot of years into this work. I may be a lot older than you two, but the bottom line is we've loved our schools dearly. And these schools are an art. They're a labor of love. They're not just a business. We don't just go out and find a buyer and sell our school to someone for a profit. These schools are an expression of who we are as people. And so the reason why I run the foundation is my appreciation for the fact that people like me, like you, love what we do, and also sometimes feel very lonely and need help. And I want you to know, and one of the things we've learned over the years is we are all capable of getting from here to there. But usually there's something that gets in the way. And so what we try to do is not tell you that what you're doing is wrong, but rather what is the dream that you have and how can we help you get from here to there? That's the Montessori Foundation in a nutshell. Now I've gone 10 minutes over time. Part two of how to do a market study and develop a market plan will be next Tuesday at the same time. I will send everyone the recording. I will send you the slideshow. I have written an essay on how to do a market study, and you'll all get it within 24 hours. But if you're able to, join me for my birthday and bring your stories, and we'll just keep talking. I like this. I do this because I really get a kick out of it. And by the way, the school I'm working with is letting me do this while they're paying me to be here because they get a kick out of this too. I I love working with family schools where mom and the daughter are running it and trying their damnedest to make sure it's there for their children. That makes me happy.
You know,
And
my
we don't all
birthday's,
you don't know what I'm talking about, right?
yeah.
So that's why we do what we do, and I just really appreciate all of you.
Well, I was gonna say my daughter now works with me.
Mazel tov.
Yeah.
It's great, Marlene.
And my birthday's the day after yours.
Well, we can celebrate together.
Yes.
I love it. Do we all get it? Do we get to walk around the circle? I remember when that tradition was started at Mount Pleasant Montessori in downtown DC by our friend Sanford Jones.
Oh, wow.
That's where it all started. So, anyone have any last thoughts before we sign off for this week? So, for those of you who enjoy other kinds of things in the private school world. On Thursday, our guest is going to be our friend Alfie Cohn. Some of you may remember Alfie. He's going to be with us live, and we're going to be talking about why all the private progressive schools have gone into the direction of elitist schools like Sidwell Friends, Georgetown Day, Edmund Burke, the Field School, the Barry School, just to name five. And so we're going to talk about progressive schools and Montessori schools and Waldorf schools and how they all fit together, I call them child honoring schools, and why there is a tendency for schools to slip away from the idealism of the founder and go in the direction of something very, very, very different. So join us if you're able. Otherwise, next week, same time, same place, I will see you. Bye-bye.
Bye. See you next week. Okay. How do you go?
Once a week.